Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining to the second Switzerland GitLab Meetup. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, my name is Adrian Kosmaczewski. I'm developer relations at Vision. I'm really happy to greet you and to have you here today with us. Just to tell you the agenda for today, we're going to have a short introduction, which is happening right now. Aarno is going to explain how we use GitLab in Vision. He's the CTO and one of the founders of Vision. He's going to tell you all about how the CI/CD pipeline we have at our own GitLab instance is running and publishing the Vision Handbook on handbook.vshn.ch. We're going to talk a little bit about our DevOps Workshop, which is something that might interest you as well. And of course, we're going to have a Q&A session. Speaking about which, the plan for today is to promote everyone to attend to panelist status so that everyone can join the conversation and share their own experiences with GitLab. So if you are using the Zoom client on Windows, Mac, or Linux, you should be able to share your camera and your microphone and then ask questions openly. Otherwise, if you're using the web client, please feel free to use the chat and the Q&A box that are available so that you can ask your questions to Aarno. Just a little bit about Vision, the usual presentation. How do you pronounce our name? Well, just like Vision. We are the DevOps company. We are in Zurich, and we are 46 people. And we are the leading DevOps and Kubernetes provider for Switzerland. And we provide, of course, 24/7 support to our customers. We are certified in various different ways. And we've been the first company in Switzerland to be certified officially by Google as a Kubernetes service provider. We work with plenty of very excellent providers of software and services around the web. You know the names. And we also create our own products. Among them, there's APPUiO, a platform as a service available here in Switzerland. Project Syn, which allows us to manage your Kubernetes cluster wherever they are located in the world. And our own Kubernetes backup operator, KTAP, which is also open source. You can install it and use it to back up your own Kubernetes clusters. But without further ado, let's go directly to Aarno, who's going to tell us how Gutenberg would be printing his own Bible if he were alive today. So Aarno, I'm going to stop sharing and the screen is all yours.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, I'm sharing my screen just without presentation mode. Sorry, which screen am I sharing? I hope you see the presentation now, right?
Yes. We see the presentation. Sorry, no problem.
I'm not seeing the frame. Cool. So yeah, my name is Aarno Aukia. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Vision, the DevOps company. I'm here to talk to you about it's kind of a side project or pet project, as you want to know. It's the handbook.vshn.ch, which I'm happy to do. And of course, since we're using a lot of GitLab for that, I think that's very great opportunity to talk about GitLab and GitLab CI and all the testing and pipelining stuff that we do. So the stuff I want to talk to you about today is, introduce you to the Vision Handbook, what is the Vision Handbook, how it's built up and stuff, then show how we do that in GitLab using GitLab CI to test, build and deploy the Vision Handbook. I want to go into the how we can do local development, how we have enabled non-engineers to also collaborate on the Vision Handbook using merge requests, and then just how we actually publish the handbook. As mentioned, I want to do this as interactive as possible. If any questions, put them down below. Happy to answer them, and yeah, go into that. If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself and ask, or put in a chat or a comment message, and I'm happy to answer them just in line or afterwards, whichever you prefer. Cool. So that's that. The Vision Handbook is a handbook of Vision.ch. It is the Vision employee handbook. So it's about what the company does and how we operate and our internal processes. The first commit to that Git repo was in 2019 in May, and the first public version was published in July of 2019. And now we have over 1,400 commits, over 430 merge requests by now. There were 2 more this afternoon, which have not been updated in the slides. And the results are 134 web pages, or if you want to download the PDF versions, it's just under 500 pages of PDF. So in just over... Hi?
Excuse me, I don't know. What we are seeing is your speaker notes, basically. We're not the
yes,
slides.
That's okay. I'm not putting in full screen because I'm going to switch back between the tabs and show and tell. So yeah, you get raw and unfiltered view of my whole screen now, which is, I think, is okay.
That's fine. I'm sorry.
Cool. No worries. That was intentional. So, and that's my next step, right? What is the VSHN Handbook? It's a website. It looks like this. It's publicly available. Handbook.vshn.ch. Go have a look. There's a lot of stuff about how we work internally as a company, whether that's like internal processes and stuff, whether that's how we are organized, what are our company values and stuff like that, how we do operations, the different job profiles, the different roles. There's internal documentation, how we use certain tools that we use internally. And of course, you can download the handbook as a PDF, as an EPUB for ebook readers, as a man page if you want to have a man handbook. And of course, there's some meta information, like for example, like changelog, which we're of course very proud to have like a proper changelog, like we expected from any software product. Of course, also for the handbook. And as you can see, this one goes actually down to 2019 when we first published the first version. That's the handbook, right? As you can see right now, the handbook is public. So how do we build the handbook? So behind the scenes, it's just short of 11,000 lines of Asciidoc. Asciidoc is very similar to Markdown. As a user, the main difference is Markdown uses the hash character, like for title indentation. Asciidoc uses the equal sign, else it's pretty much the same. As a user, at first I was like, the fuck, why we were using like Asciidoc, not Markdown. There's actually quite a few reasons, and if you click on the slides, of course, I'll publish afterwards. If you click on the link of Markdown, there's like a long page explaining the differences. The nutshell is that if you want to do meta information, if you want to do like dynamic linking to different pages, and they want the links to automatically adapt to if you change like the name or the structure, that's something that Asciidoc can provide, and that's something you have to do manually in Markdown. So that's cool. We use Markdown a lot for like readmes and that kind of stuff, but for like large sets of documentation, which has to link to each other, and the links have to, automatically like adapt to the structure and that kind of stuff. That's one of the strong points of Asciidoc, with like embedding of videos and tables and that kind of stuff, which Markdown is maybe not Markdown's strongest point. The whole Asciidoc, it's like Markdown is like a text-based format. So that's processed using Antora and Asciidoctor. These are open source tools that basically compile the text into HTML, PDF, EPUB, and into the man page format, as you saw it, the downloadable formats, and use that same setup for 7 different sites. That's actually a link. So in the VSHN knowledge base, there's a whole link. So the handbook is based upon this pipeline. Then the VSHN knowledge base that you're looking at right now, as you can see, it looks pretty much the same, which is not coincidence because it uses the same templates and stuff, the same build process. But also we have like our legal documentation. Documentation is like public. We have different subtopics inside the knowledge base. We have the documentation about our control panel, documentation about the Project Syn open source tooling, and the KTAP Kubernetes backup operator, which is also an open source tool. These one are like on their own domains, but we use the same flow, the same tooling for everything, which of course makes it pretty efficient from our side. Once you get used to the whole Asciidoc and tooling and stuff, then it's just, it's easy to work with. Maybe we're an open source company, so most of the tooling and stuff we use is public. As one of the exceptions, the Git repo of the handbook is not public. The reason for that is that the discussions in the merge requests, especially about the company values and that kind of stuff, we want to keep those discussions private, and so the whole Git is not public at this point. There are a few repos that are public. So if you're interested to have a look at how does this format look like. So for example, the documentation for the application catalog that was part of the knowledge base, that one is public. So you can go have a look at the docs, how they're built up, how the pages look like, how the Asciidoc is look like, the code, and that kind of stuff. And of course, look at the raw one. So as you can see, this is pretty text-based format. And that's exactly how we do the handbook, which I'm going to show you in just a second. All the tools we use to build and test and stuff, that's of course all public. And I'm going to have a just a slide with the links so you can click on them and also include them down below, just that you can check them out yourself. And also if you want to use them or want to get inspired by them, of course, have a look at those as well. So let's go have a look at the handbook, right? I mean, this is just a regular GitLab project. We have this directory structure, which is very similar to the one that are public, right? Except we have the GitLab CI here. We have, of course, the whole source, the Asciidoc files, as we have them in the other repos as well. We have them some deployment stuff like the Kubernetes configuration that we use to basically deploy it and to manage the root, so the HTTP load balancer to it. We have two different deployments for that because we have the handbook itself, which is like one application. It's basically static HTML files that are served by an Nginx container, but the full text search is actually so if you search for communication, the full text search is actually a separate container running a Node.js full text search application, which then provides a JSON with these results, which again, if I click on a result, then the result is served by the Nginx container. So it's actually two different applications that are running at the same time. And these are, of course, separate deployments. We have, of course, a README, how to contribute to the thing, how to check it out, how to develop it locally. I'm going to explain that in just a second, of course, as well. So that's how we work. Let's go into some of these in more detail. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of open source tooling that we use. I'm going to post the links in just a second so you can actually click on it. We have the GitLab instance, which runs the Git repo, and of course the GitLab CI, which we use to build and deploy it. And there's a lot of public available tooling that we of course use. Most of our open source tools are published on github.com and of course are available there. And then we deploy it from the GitLab CI onto the APPUiO.ch Kubernetes cluster, which then deploys the Nginx container for actually serving the HTML, and then the full text search container, which are then both accessible to the outside. And all of that is orchestrated by GitLab CI and the pipeline, which I'm going to introduce to you in just a second. So we have just to get slowly to it before I just crash the whole pipeline in your faces. So we have 5 different stages in our deploy pipeline. First, we have like the tests that run on the source code, which validation tests. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Then once those are green, then we actually build the HTML, PDF, EPUB and man pages. So we compile it basically. From that, we have like some validation steps. So we check that there's, if the HTML is valid, we check the links of the HTML is valid. That would also say, for example, if the PDF wouldn't have been generated, then the link to the PDF would be broken. And then the link checker would actually find that. So there's some validation on the result basically. If that's all green, then we build a Docker container. We will Docker container for the HTML, we will Docker container for the search engine. And then if it's a commit on master, then we tag that and deploy that using the kubectl. So we push the newest version of the container, of course. Actually, right now we already push every version of the container to the GitLab registry, but then actually for production releases, so for releases on the master branch, we actually push that to the registry of APPUiO, and then we trigger a deployment. So we apply the kubectl and apply a deployment until the newest version of is rolled out. And now that's why let me show you that in real life, right? So this is the last production deployment that we did. It was, I think, last Friday. Yes, last Friday, 5 days ago. So as you can see, these are the different steps of the pipeline. We have some checks on the source code. So we check for trailing new lines, check that every file has a new line at the end. We check that every line of every file does not contain like an empty white space character, so that there's like trailing white space on the line. These are just, basic linting, basically, right? So basic style guides, enforcement, or let's say suggestions to fix your stuff for especially for newer contributors that don't know the style guide or aren't so experienced with coding, or don't have an IDE that shows them like trailing white space or automatically adds the new line at the end. That's just how we roll. We have a custom script called check orphans. That's actually a small Python script that checks that if every page is actually mentioned in the navigation, so that we don't have like orphan pages, so pages that don't have any links to them. So it would be very, very difficult to find them. So that's the check orphans check that we did. It's like if you're interested, please speak up. I'll show the source code. We have a check that if you do a link, you actually have to put in if you do a cross-reference to another page, you cannot, if you don't put in like a link label, so a text for the link, then it's actually the link, there is no link. So there's a check for that, because it happened to me a few times. I was like, yeah, just cross-reference to that page. And I somehow assumed you would like just take the page title as like the link text, right? But it doesn't, and so it bit me a few times. So I've wrote a check for it. So now I know if I missed that, and of course now I don't forget it anymore. But that's the benefit of having a check for it, right? I made a check that if you rename a page, then there's you can specify a page alias. So the old link with the old file name still redirects to the new file name, and of course, since I have been guilty of moving or renaming a file, which generates a new URL, of course, and then there's the old links to the old URL, then of course get broken. I have a check to check that if I rename a page, then it actually warns me if I forget to put in like the page aliases, so to include the old file name as an attribute onto the page. We have a few shell scripts. So all of these above are shell scripts. So somebody said like, hey, or I was doing like a new shell script. And then somebody said like, hey, this is like bad shell script style. So check out this shell script tool. I think there's a web-based thing of that, but also there's of course a Docker containerized version of it. So now we have a check that every shell script that's in the repo gets checked by a shell check, and shell check is basically just a style checker for shell scripts, so you don't make the obvious mistakes of having executing file names as commands on the shell and that kind of stupid stuff, which is super great, and of course it'll help me to figure out some problems before I committed them. There are some problems which it did not fix yet, or which I have not made a check yet. For example, I'm using a BusyBox shell as the runner for these shell checks. And the BusyBox, as you know, that's like a special program which includes a lot of the basic Unix tooling, including grep, for example, which I'm using for checking these. And the BusyBox grep has like it's this very minimal version of grep, so it doesn't include all the grep options and long options of that I'm used to under Mac or Linux. And so of course it breaks when I use one of those in the check, and I only see when I manually go and check the execution of that, which is of course a little bit sad, but that's, for example, something that shell check did not alert me on. And then last but not least, we have Bale. And Bale is an open source tool. That's the link is in there, of course, as well. That's like an English language style checker, right? So that's actually a project on GitHub, of course. There's basically different rule sets that you can enable. There's default rule sets with Bale themselves, which, as far as I know, is the one from the Microsoft documentation style guide. There's different other companies, of course, also have published there, like NetNode or GitLab and stuff. And so you can enable and disable them freely. Also, if you know Grammarly, that's like an actually closed source like browser extension, then it checks your like English language for grammar and stuff. There's like this open source version of that, which is actually pretty cool. There's, well, of course, it's not it doesn't have everything included, but at least it has a lot. And so there's like the openly, as it's called, style rules, which we've also enabled now actually very recently, which we still have in the training mode. So it warns, but it doesn't generate errors yet. That, of course, is also a good start to introducing new style guide or style checks in that. And we use Vale for that. And of course, we have as mentioned on GitHub, we have like a small repo which has like the Docker file and stuff, and pulls the right components and the right styles and that kind of stuff, and makes a Docker container out of it, which of course you're happy to use, and it's freely and openly available on Docker Hub, of course. So in the pipeline, we have 2 steps. So we have 1 step that's actually if it's like a hard fail, right? If Vale says error, which is like the higher level of error, then we actually stop the presses and we go and fix it. And then there's some, suggestions and warnings, which is allowed to fail. So on these, we don't stop. It's just like a small exclamation mark, a yellow exclamation mark, like, hey, maybe there would be something, but it's okay, right? So there you can get inspiration, or sometimes we have like maybe we want to fix something, and then we can go and have a look at the warnings as well. But the errors are the ones which actually stop the process if there are some. This, of course, helps us to, most of visioneers are not English native speakers. The handbook is in English. And of course, there's a lot of English language checks, that kind of stuff, which as a non-English language speaker helps me to stay focused and just to have good or have consistent English language style in the handbook. After that, if all of these are green, then we run the Asciidoc, so the actual compilation of the HTML, of the EPUB ebook reader format, of the man page and the PDF. These are just 4 independent steps that can run in parallel. Once these are done, then we have some validation steps. We have currently the Google Analytics. We check that we actually have our Google Analytics in there. It's more just a validation step that we don't forget it, or if we change something in the building or configuration, that it doesn't drop out. We have an HTML proofer, which is basically an HTML checker and a link checker at the same time. We have HTML test, which is actually a very similar project. One is written in Ruby, one is written in Go. So one of them executes in like 10 seconds, the other one takes like a minute. So we currently have both, and actually both of them are allowed to fail. Both of them also do link checking. So they, if you have like links to external sites, to check if they're still available, and if they're broken, we actually are allowed to fail. We don't want to break, like if you're working on that part of the handbook and some link is broken in this part of the handbook, we don't want to, stop your work. We just want to say, hey, by the way, there is some problem over there. It's okay. You can continue working on this part, but please do have a look at the other part whenever, or in a new merge request, for example, and fix that, which is, of course, not related to the current work being done. We have Handspell, which is like a spell checker, which we run over the HTML as well. And then there's a separate validated HTML step, which I'm going to show you in the source code to GitLab CI, which just some regexp, basically based prep stuff, which just check if it's in there and if it's not forgotten. These are especially like customizations you have on the template, like to include like metadata, meta description, like SEO, search engine optimization, that kind of keyword stuff, and that. And if they fall out, then we know, that's something we customize the template on. And if they are out, then probably we have rolled the template back to something. So they're in there just to check that our template is actually valid. And there's stuff in the HTML which you expect should be there. If all of that is green, then we create a Docker container. We create the Docker test and Docker prod container separately. Basically, they are the same. They're based on the same process. This one pushes to the APPUiO registry, which is used for prod, and this one uses to the internal GitLab registry. It's basically the same container. They have the same hashes. The only difference is this one, of course, executes on each commit. So even for test and feature branches and stuff, you can then just manually pull that container from the GitLab registry and execute it locally and test it out. And for the actual prod release, then we then actually build, tag, and then run the deployment on the actual production cluster. As you can see, this is the last deployment, the production deployment, so that it includes tag and deploy steps for all the feature branches. The stuff stops at package. Then there's a Docker container you can download and test and run it and stuff, especially if you change some web server parameters, that kind of stuff that you want to check beforehand. That's of course cool to do in the with an actual container, right? With the container, then would with the same container, then would that be deployed to production later on if you actually did it in master, right? Cool. I see a question like, what do the green circle check marks mean on the screen? So yes, this is the pipeline, or this is the execution of the pipeline. The green check marks mean that when this was run on 5 days ago, the last Friday, then all of these, each and every check was green, was positive, was like run successfully. So that just means that they all went well. So this is like a specific commit of the this is actually the release commit, so the merge of the development branch into the master branch, which then triggers the whole deployment, including the deployment to production. Cool. So all of this is of course defined in the Git repo itself. So that's actually unfortunate. Oh, in this case, it's unfortunate because of the GitLab CI configuration is actually something we could 100% open source. It's just in a Git repo where the Git repo is an open source. So sorry about that. But I mean, I was thinking about it. Can I just copy it somewhere and make it available to you guys? That would actually not be a problem. If you want to have a copy of it, just shoot me a mail, and I'm happy to just send it to the last version or something. So up until we have a project which is like the whole configuration and control repo is open as well, then you would of course just get it from there. I'm also happy to include a link to it as soon as it would become available later on. This is the configuration of how all of these steps are configured. They're of course configured in code in this YAML file. There's some variables which we can change easily. As you can see, this is like on the APPUiO registry, what they're called and what they're labeled. We have like the 6 stages as we saw them in the diagram before. We have the different checks here, each and every one. There's like checks that run like just some shell scripts. So for example, this one is just a container that includes Git, it includes BusyBox and Git and curl, which is a container that we can use to run like git diff commands on. And then we have the shell script that then actually checks if there was a rename and if the rename contains the reference to the old file name. That's the shell script there. We have like some small checks like running the shell check. That's just as I mentioned, checks any shell script that if it adheres to the shell check style security guide. We have the empty cross-reference text. We have the white space checks. We have the check orphans, the checks for the orphans files. As you can see, all of these are just running a certain container on the output of the previous steps. For example, on the either on the source code in this tests step. So run the Vale container in that version using that command on the source code, actually 2 times, once for errors and once for warnings. And as you can see, the warnings one is allowed to fail, whereas the errors file, the errors one is not allowed to fail. So that's actually then stops the presses. Right? That was the test stage. And we actually built the stuff. As you can see, there's like this underscore public, which then contains the actually generated HTML. We do the we do the handbook build, we do the EPUB build, we do the PDF build, and after that we run the hunt spell through the HTML. We run the HTML proof through the HTML. We have actually some websites where we have to ignore errors. For example, the community.socialsecurity30.org blocks us when we come from CI because we're using like curl and like a robot we set the robot browser, right? And then they say, no. The link is actually valid if you come from a proper browser, but using this automated scraping prohibition, basically, to give us an error message, which is okay. So we know to ignore it, but of course we can't do link checking then. So that's how we configured it here. We have the HTML test, which is the same thing as HTML proofer, basically, just a different tool. We have to check that there's the Google Analytics are in there. And then we have some basic checks on the HTML, as I mentioned earlier. We check that there are no HTTP links to our other pages or our internal links, internal meaning to other vision or our product pages are actually HTTPS and HTTP. We check that we have like this metadata with the Twitter metadata. The Twitter card, title. We have the Open Graph, which is the Facebook and Google use for metadata. We have the meta description. We have the Open Graph description, and we have the Twitter description. Of course, we have to include it 3 times because all of them have not gotten to use the same tags. We have the keywords. We have an Open Graph image. We have a link image. We have a Twitter image, and then a page type, site name, and of course our Twitter site. We just check them that it's there. We don't check that it's there on every page. We don't check that it's it just errors if there's if no page includes them because we, for example, broke the template, then this test basically becomes red, which is the reason for the test. And as mentioned, we have the Docker prod and the Docker test build, basically just pushing this one pushes it to the APPUiO registry, and this one is one we use to build and push into the GitLab registry. And then the latest ones are tagged and pushed to the production registry on APPUiO. And then last but not least, we basically just OC, which is the OpenShift, same thing as kubectl, basically. In the project name, namespace project name, we apply the whole deployment config YAMLs, and that is on the deployment folder. And then we just roll out the latest version that was pushed and tagged in steps before. So basically we deploy, right? So that's the whole magic. Of course, now doing it for over 2 years, it has become like 300 lines of code of steps. But that's that's what you do for a pet project, right? And making sure that all the steps and checks are in there. If you have any questions, I didn't see any. If you have any questions, then please do get into it. I have a screenshot of the pipeline for later fun to look at the slides. I'll include all the links to the tools that I mentioned and all the base images and all the stuff. They're all on our GitHub pages. GitHub pages, exactly. And of course, they're open source and you're free to use them or adapt them to your needs. Or of course, pull requests welcome, contributions welcome. If you have any ideas how to make them better, absolutely, please. So there's a question: do you copy the same GitLab CI for all the other handbooks? No. So let's put it this way: I use the handbook as the playground, as basically the master for GitLab CI. We have like a template project that we use the cookie cutter tool on. So basically, it's like a template Git repo that you can then instantiate new projects with. And my plan is to basically put the GitLab CI in there, so it gets adapted to all the different Git repos that use the same config. We also have actually for some other projects for the SYN components. We are right now, actually we have a working copy now, which I haven't had time to adapt to this need. It's basically using the tool called Module Sync. which is similar, that you have like a template repo, and then you can say, hey, here's the list of all the repos that use this whatever stuff that's in there here. And then you can do like sync, right? You can update the other repos to basically have one master copy, and then just have a cron job or something or do pull requests on the other repos as soon as there's a new version. That's something we're working on, but as we have not come around. That here you see, this is like a pet project. This is not a vision product or something that we sell. Does it answer your question, Pascal? Cool, awesome. Local development, as you may or may not have noticed, right now we don't have like automatic deployments for each feature branch. The reason we don't have it is because we're lazy, of course, and because we have a pretty awesome workflow for local development. And so usually when we do like to add a new page or do like a change or something, we make a feature branch, usually locally. And from develop is like a work in progress branch. And then we have this awesome container called preview. We have a make file in the repo as well. So you can use make preview, which includes in all the Docker runs, vision / Antora - preview, the link, of course, is here. And that includes also a tool that watches for changes to the files and then automatically reloads the preview. And that's of course something I have to demo because I personally think it's so awesome and I personally use it so much. So let me show you that to you. So I have here the localhost colon 2020, which is now not running. So let me start it up. As you can see, it just does docker run, takes a few times. I have here the index.adoc open, which is like the main page of the first page of the handbook. Let's see once it has started up. Blah, 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 successfully started here. Welcome to the VSHN Handbook. So as I edit here, I can say hello meetup. And as soon as I save, it takes about 7 seconds for the thing to detect the change, rebuild the affected pages, and then basically tell my browser to please reload. And as you can see, you now see reloading browser. And if all the demo gods are with me,
you should probably enable the live reload on the browser.
I should have.
That's the missing piece.
So it uses like this live reload extension, which can connect to the web server in the Docker container. So let's try again to reload. Yes, no, maybe. And as soon as it's working, it takes about 7 seconds, and the thing updates. And that's such an awesome way to work locally that we never came around to go and oh, I think I'm missing an empty line here. Let's give it another 7 seconds. So we never came around to implement like feature branch deployments because that's a workflow that most people can use, and either they just read diff, right, for text content, and for other news we use this. The demo gods were not with me today. It says hello meetup there, right? Let's see if
when you refresh the browser, you must re-enable the live reload because live reload probably disappears. Try again. On your browser.
Yes. So I saved, and now the browser should reload, but it doesn't.
No, because you have disabled it. Try again. There we go. Now try making a modification.
Oh, it reloaded by itself.
Okay. There we go.
Oh well, but as you can see, that's something that's pretty cool. Awesome. Now it refreshed automatically. Yes. Okay. So cool. So yeah, that's the process that we use for local development. And it's just wrapped in the Makefile to make the Docker run, blah, 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 and mount this volume and blah, blah, blah. Just easier to read. We also have a make check, which is just running a subset of the tests. Let me stop this. It just runs a subset of the tests, and it's just if you before you do the first commit and merge request, you can already check like basic stuff locally. It also just uses the same containerized tools as the CI does. And it's just, if you want to do the clean thing locally first, and before you then actually do a merge request, that's what the make check does. Of course, all the checks are run again whenever you do like a commit that you actually push, that is then picked up by CI. But it's of course just as a user-friendly wrapper, basically, to also enable people to test that locally. And once you have something that you want to share or discuss or review or something, then you just push your feature branch to our GitLab instance, make a merge request, and then in the merge request we can discuss all the we can discuss and agree on whatever, and then we can approve a merge. Cool. Questions for local development and stuff? Please do just shoot. I think one of the things which I'm super happy about is that this process and the readability of Asciidoc also helps to include like non-engineers. I mean, Vision has like 46 people, and there's less than 10 non-engineers, but still, I mean, it's important for me to include them. Of course, employee handbook is a topic that affects everybody, not just engineers. So let me show you like an example of a merge request where there's also like non-engineers were involved. This is like I said the merge requests are not public. I got permission to show you this one. So this is like the adding of the developer relations role that Adrian is doing as a page in the handbook. And of course, we have like this template for merge requests that says like type of change. This one is like a new page with new content. There's of course the checklist to do before you submit that. And you can say, it's ready or not. And then, as you can see here, yes, it was already merged and approved and stuff. But of course, here you see, for example, Tobias discussing like, hey, is this like, does this make sense? And should it be there or not? And stuff, and then put that out. Just generally positive feedback. Then, of course, discussing like single items in the thing, and then also, let's see here. I think one of the greatest features of GitLab is, of course, that you can just suggest a change. I can show you in a second how you do that, and then the author can then accept or not accept, or take inspiration and do another change. But it's super easy to just discuss then on concrete terms, what do you think should be there and shouldn't be there, and how you would do it and stuff. And not only like how you would do it, but actually make a proposal, which is then super easy to just accept by the author, right? And once then I just added a meta description as well as a suggestion. You see all of that is already applied, right? And then we have like internal process where we approved that in our chat, which was then approved. And after that, we just committed it and merged it. That's the process, right? I mean, there's and the process, since you can do it in a web browser, it doesn't require you to code or do Git or anything like that. That of course also helps. And also, I think I saw somewhere there was like a commit here. Marcus is our CEO. Right, he's not an engineer, and so he, I think it's super awesome that he went in and corrected the typo by himself. For typos, you don't have to do like a propose or something; you just do it. There was like a Y missing, and he just added it. And I think it's super awesome that like non-engineers can do Git commits, basically, right? I think it's one of the great benefits of using GitLab as a front end for that, right? And also, of course, seeing the changes in like a way that that the non-engineers see and understand what's being changed, what is coming new, what is being removed, what is being changed, and then going here and let me make an example, right? Going here to comment to this, and if I'm not happy with how it's written, I can just push this button here saying insert suggestion. Then I say and others, right? Whatever that means, right? I can do add a comment, and then the author can then apply or not apply that suggestion. Of course, I cannot apply it now because it's a merge request that's already merged and removed. But as you can see, that's a workflow that with little training we get to. We have like an internal education, like an internal tech talk for also for non-engineers, and with little training they can do that themselves. And of course, that's I think is super awesome that to include. Even though Git and compiling and containers is super technical, to make it easy enough for non-engineers to be able to use that. Cool. As you saw, I mean, for each and every commit, we already built a Docker container with all the HTML and PDF and stuff, right? So the publishing itself is actually pretty easy nowadays. We fix up the changelog. We make sure that it's complete. We check if there's a lot of, let's put it this way, there's not yet a CI check that for each merge request there is actually an entry to changelog. That's something we could add. So we just basically look manually over what has been changed since the last release. If there's anything we want to mention, should be mentioning the changelog that isn't there already. We then, once we're happy with the concept of changelog as well, we create a merge request from develop to master. So master is the deployment branch, basically develop is the working copy. And once it's merged, then the change on master or the commit on master then triggers the whole tagging and deployment or rollout process, as I saw earlier in the pipeline. So that's super easy. That's actually something that even an engineer could do. And then we just prepare an empty entry, the top entry, the empty entry for the changelog, so that when people do a merge request, they can already fill in like the line in the changelog themselves, and then there's less to aggregate into the changelog for the next release. That's basically it. As you can see, that's something doesn't take a lot of time. And of course, having all the checks running around it, we know that even the development branch like successfully creates a container that can actually produce a website and stuff. So that's of course something that it takes out a lot of stress of, oh no, am I breaking it and stuff. So it's super safe to also just deploy it on a Friday afternoon with all the changes we've accumulated over a week. Cool. I mean, that's all I prepared by myself. If you have any questions and stuff, please do speak up. I mean, it's in our day jobs we do that stuff like for customers and stuff, right? We've just been awarded with the highest GitLab partner status, the Select partnership just recently. So that's of course something we're super happy with. We're also the first Swiss company to be a Kubernetes certified service provider, as Adrian already mentioned. So that's of course something we're pretty both of the topics are very close to our hearts, and of course that's why we also do that in our, I can't say spare time, it's still work time, but as we do like besides our actual day jobs, just for ourselves, and of course playing around with it and having some it's still emotional and it's fun way to apply that knowledge, of course. Cool, that's all I prepared. Any questions? Speak up now or later in the comments, of course.
Thanks a lot, Aarno. It was, I've been adding a couple of details as well on the chat during your presentation, just to give some context and some names, but essentially it all grew up very organically, right? I mean, we started with just a basic pipeline that only built the Antora website and then pushed it to APPUiO. That was the basic first version of the whole thing. And then you've been adding a lot of steps to, validate the style, spell checking, creation of the container. Then we added creation of the PDF, creation of the EPUB. So all of these things basically came up very organically, but the very, very core at the beginning was just creating the website and putting it inside of a container and pushing the container to production. That was it. No search engine, no nothing. It was just the bare bones website. And basically we grew up from that. But basically that's how it went, very simply. So yeah, excellent. Thanks a lot for all the memories. It's incredible. It's been already 2 years that we've been publishing the handbook. And of course, for all of you who are attending or watching this on YouTube later on, please go on, check our handbook. I think it's an awesome way for us to show the world how we work, all the things that we do, and we all eat our own dog food in Vision. So basically, that's exactly what we preach, is what we do. So we can recommend anyone to publish a website like this. I can only recommend to use such a pipeline for publishing your website. Cool. That was really fun. So very quickly, I just wanted to close today's session with a recap and to remind you about the fact that we are offering a DevOps workshop where basically we can teach you how to do exactly what you've seen on the screen. One of the many things we teach on our workshop is basically how to automatize everything that you do, all of the manual steps that you take every time you want to do anything. In this case, is publishing a website, which is something that many businesses have to do anyway. So this is one of the things that we teach our clients. So why do we do this? Well, first of all, because many people who are new to DevOps don't know exactly how to apply those principles in their organizations. So here, for example, this website, this handbook that we create embraces the DevOps principles, the principle of flow. So basically anyone can go and edit it, and there's a flow of changes going to production all the time. There's the principle of feedback, because we get the possibility of having our GitLab instance to tell us when things go wrong, and we have the feedback immediately because you have a very ugly red cross on the merge request telling you these cannot be merged. And this, of course, it's very important. And of course, we get feedback from the users who use the handbook, and of course we can get better every time. So now you have this 300-line CI/CD pipeline, which is quite a demonstration of the power of GitLab. Because of this, sometimes people don't know exactly how you can improve your application architecture. You might have some legacy application, and when I say legacy, it's anything that is older than 5 years old, right? Because that's how fast this industry is moving. So we can help you re-architect your assets so that they work better in a cloud-native environment. We can give you a second option, a second opinion about what is it that you're doing currently. If the current processes that you've created don't really work for you, we can tell you why. So how does it work? We first gave a first overview of your environment. We want to learn as much as possible. Then we document the current status of your processes, and then we provide a technical vision about everything that you could do with your current infrastructure. And of course, we talk about the gaps that you would have regarding some best practices you might be missing here and there. And all of this goes directly into learning how to improve your own processes internally. How does this happen? We do a 4-hour evaluation of your situation with one visioneer who will basically evaluate your own infrastructure. This includes a whole preparation and follow-up, of course, about all the recommendations that we can give you, with the definition of the actual and target state. So basically, we are going to see exactly how far away on a DevOps transformation are you, and how far could you go with some of our best practices. And of course, all of this, given the current situation, takes place online. Of course, ideally, it would be in person, but there are limitations, of course, these days, but we can do this online as well. And of course, there's absolutely no obligation to buy any other products from Vision if you subscribe to this DevOps workshop. This has a flat fee of 2,000 francs without VAT. If you are interested, please contact us on this website, on this webpage, vision.ch/solutions/DevOps enablement. There's a form, you can fill up the form and you can let us know that you would be interested into this DevOps workshop. We can help you get your DevOps implementation to the next level and to basically reach what we've done for ourselves with the handbook, which is exactly part of the whole idea. If you are interested in this, don't hesitate to contact Bastian van der Stel, channel manager of GitLab for EMEA, for the EMEA region, or myself, Adrian Kosmaczewski at Vision. You don't need to remember my family name. The email is much simpler, it's adrian@vision.ch, much simpler. So just drop me an email anytime you want. So that was everything that we had for you today on this second Switzerland GitLab Meetup. There's more meetups that we organize, and we're just pushing this like a little bit of advertising, shameless advertising. But next month, we've got 2 great events. We've got the 3rd Zurich Nginx Meetup. So the Nginx Meetup is all about people talking about what they do with Nginx, security, load balancer, website optimization, anything that you are doing on Nginx. The stage is yours. So feel free to send us a message, and we will be very happy to have you on board and to have you tell us what you do with Nginx technologies. And then we have the all-encompassing and very big cloud native computing meetup, which is a much bigger event, much older as well. We've been running this since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. It's been almost 4 or 5 years now. It's a really long meetup. And we've got great content for this 3rd edition of 2021. This is the 3rd and last one. Also, we wanted to share about the fact that we have already dates for the 2022 Cloud Native Computing Meetups, which we cross fingers will take place in person. So there will be the possibility of, mingling and networking in person together with maybe a beer, a glass of wine, maybe a slice of pizza, and you can basically get back to this idea. Of course, always with a strong COVID protocol, which is mandated as well, of course, by the Federal Council of Switzerland. So that was everything that we had for you today. Let us know if you're interested in speaking in either of our meetups, or if you would like to share your own GitLab experience on this meetup in future editions in 2022. Of course, we're going to publish the dates very soon. My name is Adrian. I was thrilled to have you here. And of course, please, if you have any questions or comments, I'm going to stop the recording now, but we are going to stay online for a few minutes, and you can basically speak up your mind. If you would like to ask a question openly, I can just raise your hands on the participants list, and I will give you the possibility to talk. We are going to enable your microphone if you want to ask a question. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And I stop the